We are on the morning break in the questioning of HN3, the undercover police officer who used the cover name Jason Bishop, code name Red Herring, infiltrated anarchist and activist groups, including Reclaim the Streets, Earth First, and Disarm Dicey, the arms fair, Dicey, the arms fair in East London. In many ways, though they overlapped, the sort of the successor to Jim Boyling in the field. I'm joined by Donald O'Driscoll from the Undercover Research Group. There's not been a huge amount that we've been through yet with Jason Bishop. He's going to set the scene about his training, about how he was recruited, about his cover employment as a pirate DVD guy. What have you made of what we've heard so far?
It's been very slow to get into things. It's had a really rocky start this morning.
Yes.
Delays. Yeah. Has to be said. It doesn't.
Ghost restriction order.
Ghost restriction. We have no idea.
Why they thought there was anything to restrict, I have no idea.
Yeah, it's quite bizarre. Lots of hitches. Question hasn't been particularly strong. It's been, can't get the exhibits up, can't find the exhibits. Yeah. So it's not the strongest evidence. Not much report. We have learned a lot about DVDs.
We've learned a fair bit about DVDs. The fact that he used to pirate not just movies, but also software, including Photoshop, Quark Express, things like that. He would give these to activists. He says, they would have been able to get them otherwise. As was pointed out in the evidence for Emily Apple, that activists wouldn't have been able to access these. People didn't have high-speed internet, didn't know where to look for them. And he was like, I suppose that's true. He hadn't considered it before.
Yeah. There's lots of this. That might be true. There's not. It's just like it's subtle vagueness all the way through. So that's why it's hard to report, because what actually has he said really?
It was quite interesting when he talked about being recruited. We started off with his recruitment process into the SDS. He talked about a 4-stage process. One when John Wall came along to his then unit and he expressed an interest. And then that was followed up with coffee in the Army and Navy stores with Bob Lambert, the informal nature of the unit sort of coming through very strongly. We talked about the way that there was a visit to his home and they talked to his wife. The formal interview where he was asked, would he take drugs if he was offered them? He said, yes, he would. He claimed throughout this entire process there was no mention of anything to do with sexual relationships. The only time he actually kind of deferred from that was when he said that he read John Dines' file, and it became very clear to him that John Dines had a sexual relationship with Helen Steele. He wasn't.
Yeah, it was very obvious and fair. I don't think it was said explicitly, but you couldn't read it and come away thinking, why is this woman trying to track him down?
But for the most part, he says that he didn't put any importance to the tradecraft manual.
There was just a collection of antidotes, anecdotes. So not really that significant. It's just he's talking to his officers. He talks a lot to HM1. Yet they're not talking about any relationships. He's not really adding anything to the picture in this. He's not willing to let anything out.
It's quite interesting actually that again, like so many of the undercover officers, his written statement and claims he's made within that, he's now much more sanguine about it. He goes, if I said that, it must have been true, but I don't recall it now.
Yeah, it's like, do none of them actually sit down and read your statement before giving this is a good thing? So maybe I said that. How much do they really care about this statement that's been done in their name? That's a really important document. He's not willing to give up too much, and it's like listening to this. It's like he's coming across. I'm a professional police officer. I managed not to pick up any information among my own people with all these relations, and I didn't read these important documents around. Well, I kind of read them. It's like, what are you actually doing here? What is the quality of this unit that makes you a quality unit? Supposedly.
I think it's very telling that they went through so many of the SDS officers who were in the field at the time, who he claims he spoke to at length about his deployment before he went into the field, and it was so many of them. It was as Daisy Monaghan, the solicitor for the barrister for the inquiry, was doing the questioning, the assistant counsel. Was like, and this officer who was in a sexual relationship at this moment, were you aware? No, and this detective, this supposed, intellectual undercover officer, had no idea, supposedly, that it felt like the vast majority of SDS officers at that time were in sexual relationships. You can have no idea whatsoever.
Yeah, no, it was like I see no evil, hear no evil, therefore I can't speak about it. Any evil.
I mean, particularly Gorling, given that he was posted into the same field as Jim Boyling. He spoke extensively with Jim Boyling. Their deployments overlapped by about a year. During that time, Jim Boyling was in a sexual relationship with Ruth, as I remember correctly. And so the idea that Ruth was chairing the RTS meetings, which Jason Bishop was attending, though not very often. I mean, I thought it was very interesting. His cover employment supposedly precluded him from going to the meetings.
Yeah, because he had to do too much work. It's like, why are you doing work for this? And why are you working as an assistant to was a computer programmer?
Yeah,
and I'm also thinking, it's like, what isn't an assistant to a computer programmer?
I mean, in 1998,
none of this really quite stacks up. And the idea that even, we've seen so many of the reports, just like, oh, such and such is in a relationship, such and such child's parent is this, blah, blah, blah. Totally manages to miss that the undercover is having a relationship and doesn't report it. Like, he would be putting in reports on the women that Boyling targeted if he was doing his job right in the sense of how they perceived it. So why wasn't he doing it? He knew must have known there was something going on. So none of it really, really washes.
No, it really doesn't. I mean, it gives the impression that, in fact, what's going on is that Jason Bishop is protecting his former colleagues.
Yeah. He's doing it very quietly and thing, but that is like, that's what you're coming away with.
Yeah. Very clearly, I feel. There's a lot more to get through. I said we haven't got that far. Go on.
So one thing that they come up was they were talking about when he was first being deployed, he had a visit from the managers to his house, which is quite a common thing in a lot of them. And he said, they were given information, but they didn't really know what they were getting into, and this and those thing. But the other thing that was pointed out at that point was his wife was supposedly getting regular visits. The family was getting regular visits.
That was in the
official paperwork. But it's like, no, they had one visit and that was it. And he was quite clear about that. And it's just like, everybody in this is lying.
Yeah, very clearly. And it just shows you the way in which, we've seen this before, time and again, that the paper trail when it comes to these deployments, and particularly when it comes to recruitment, is so much more official than the actual very informal process that they appear to go through.
And we saw all the this is the most secure unit, this was the most high standards of welfare. They keep going on about all these mechanisms. It's like, and the reality is,
yeah. And I think it was quite telling. I mean, he was asked specifically about what he did talk to Jim Boyling about, and he was like, "Oh, he just told me what to wear, what not to wear, where to buy my clothes for my deployment." I mean, just really sort of spurious stuff.
Worth every penny that they were paid.
Right. But I think one of the most interesting bits was when it came to talk about sexual relationships, was when we got to that comment from Detective Chief Inspector Mike Dell. Who issues this statement?
Blanket, you will not have sex. Yeah, basically, hard down the line.
Yeah, more than that. But those of you who are currently in sexual relationships undercover, they need to end now. No. Which, according to Bishop, he was like, this was just a one-off. It was like, all right, and that's it, and then carry on. He acted like it came out of the blue and then went away again.
And nobody discussed it.
Nobody discussed it. There was no discussion whatsoever. Okay, yeah. What was the reaction of your fellow undercover officers? Oh, I can't help you with that.
Yeah.
Very telling. Very telling.
It's fair. Definitely.
Yeah. No, completely. I think it's. Oh, right. Okay. Sorry. Zoe's been stunned.
Yeah. Hello. Sorry. Can I just a couple of things that really struck me just as a female. One being that when asked about the Tradecraft manual saying to only have fleeting and disastrous relationships, he said that he took that as about as important as whether his suit was fitting well or not, which a couple of us have been going, what? Is that like comparing having a relationship to having a suit? Or what? Something else that really struck me was they kept talking about his wife having to rely on her own networks of support. And that's it's really externalizing a lot of the costs of the operations onto women again. So it's again part of the institutional misogyny that they seem to be kind of completely blindly swimming within.
He was asked about why they wanted men and married men to be on the cover.
Stable relationships,
and that's it was his answer was essentially that, only not so many words.
So it's basic patriarchy, and it's just whatever the man is doing depends on the implicit unpaid support of the women. But also in that context, I'm constantly aware at the moment. They keep talking about these flats where they're living and these safe houses, and obviously they will have had all sorts of offices. But who is cleaning these places? Who is making the tea? I mean, who was looking after these guys? I mean, were they cooking for themselves? How were they eating? Who was doing their laundry? And I'm sure, sure some of them are new men, and whatever the language was back then, that they were able to do some of that for themselves. But I can't help thinking there must be a whole layer of invisible women in this whole process that haven't been called as witnesses, haven't given statements, and questions aren't even being asked about.
I mean, it's interesting you use that phrase then back then. I mean, like the phrase "new men" was actually concurrent of the time.
Yeah.
I mean, he even talks about that the Tradecraft Manual, even in 1998, was considered would have been dated. I mean,
But then you conveniently forgot to be able to say why.
Yeah.
the
It wasn't
drop down
expanded.
went out,
Yeah. But this. I mean, we've heard repeatedly this morning the idea that the early 2000s is somehow ancient history. I mean, like it's really not long
I thought
ago.
it was the 1980s that was ancient history.
Right,
No, it was
right.
the 1970s.
Yeah,
It was a different
yeah.
time back then, as Oliver
Yeah.
Sanders likes to say.
When the inquiry was called as ancient history.
Well, quite. Yeah, we've been here 11 years at this point. I've just noticed there's 18 people watching. If you are able to share, like this video, it really help. We probably should go back in. It's been 10
Yes,
minutes.
sure.
It's only a short break. We will be back in at lunchtime. I hope to sit down with Emily Apple at lunchtime. She's been mentioned so far this morning with some of the comments. She knew Jason was very well. Hopefully, she's got a lot to say about it. Anything else you want to add?
Nope.
Well, we'll see you all in a bit. Thanks for joining.